Day 9 August 2023. We have 4 days to end the period of this warranty. We will have a conversation today, quite simple, quite clear, presenting the guidelines to convict all players at the G20, consider the regression until specific checks in the period of complaint, at least since 2014. The security plan comes before since 1920. At this period, we had at the 20s the preparation, I would say, to create the American syndicate of crime. Basically, it's all about the drink and the period of the crackdown. We have criminal movements on Europe before since the Middle Age and also on Asia, considering the Meiji era in Japan. Of course, that nowadays we have two academic efforts and works published on Europe, which is René Passé on France, saying that the proximity between the state and the organized crime probably would be something unavoidable. At the 9, it's this work, it's the illusion as neoliberalism. And of course that we have another one, which is a concrete judicial effort. It's Giovanni Falcone that has the talk on Italy that it's difficult to talk at that time about the state without have the organized crime on it. This kind of thing must be a warning, but it's not faced like this in everything we observe it down here. We observe that this kind of activity, complained and under research, will switch the pattern of all things, and the activity you do probably misguided, and then you will have a difficult period to present things with the transparency required. The proximity between the organized crime and the regular area pass through an interface or a control inside the institution, the system. If the system, the institution, your organization is formally failured until get near as entropy, the failure is inside. It's the interest of the judges corrupted, the chairs corrupted, or the leaders linked some way with the organized crime. Without difference, there's no difference. We will observe that this kind of thing has no difference, but governments, cooperative area and states all at the same situation as promiscuity, and will have difficult time to present the things intentionally made according with the law, since they are promiscuous and have at least moments or segments, fragments as rational arguments in a legal side, and will affect premises as major premises or as your legal system or regulatory premises, or the functional and great law of your system. If you have the constitution, the constitution. If it's the king that you will not respect. The emperor you will not respect, or your society and the democracy. We observe that this kind of failure go by gaps in your microeconomical arguments, which represents quantifying by money all things you do, including the illegal things. And then we observe on present time some governments saying that people had been forgotten, had money forgotten at the central banks. But this pattern is repeated on and on and on. People is forgetting money all the time since 2018, for instance, when we had this in an area that has problem with transparency, accountability accomplished with legal and regulatory premises as standardized patterns, but has the interest to sponsor the criminal activity, to do the regulation against everything which is against the organized crime, and do the stimulation and prepare the laundering things and scams by prostitution, legalized drugs, legalized bets and other crimes, making weaker the internal control and have increased and boosting the criminal activity by all ways, even by markets of decision, judicial accomplishment and other kind of things, including the creation of law to protect the organized crime, not only local but internationally, setting the conflict because those groups are in a permanent struggle for domain and territory as influence they do. It's a system that's for sure worth nothing because never presented any kind of resistance against something totally illegal. Will be observed that the big data as macroeconomic arguments or the thematic panels we have in global scale. In the same way, we observe that the financial records by the promise which we have will be stored in some areas named bank, and the bank will hold money, legal and illegal. And for instance, if you have in Europe the current speech to do the taxation of the bank as values that kind of are extra values at the bank, you must be sure that in the same way we observe that the money forgotten in the central bank can be put there, having the fake records and allowing the insertion and replacement. If you do the taxation and have the redistribution from government linked with the organized crime, consider the theory on France and Italy as judicial theory, indeed you are having evidence as a trend that all government and public users of public government and state power are doing favors for the organized crime some way. We only have to track one to understand this circle as global scale. And this goal, because we had no different, including the major democracy at the globe and the country that claim itself as the most freedom nation, there is no difference between different sides, both corrupted and with difficult time to present regular things as intention, sometimes transferring military technology and architectures for areas in a conflict that you are not sure if this conflict is for real. You can predict by things you have and the fact that you had all this period, not considering this independent effort that puts me a single creditor against you all, present those arguments at the warranty, considering the antitrust justice, at least that's my perception in some way. This country has the interest and be straight, and the Europe some way, even as a minority, but considering that he has this interest, and some areas in Japan, to present this kind of thing. After have no difference, they will achieve the institutional power through the democratic system, even by hoax. Perpetrators of electoral crimes as complained by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And once they got this, they will for sure affect the life of we all creating law, doing the designation of judges, Ministry of Supreme Court, but always doing favors for the organized crime, not only local, but in a transcontinental level. And the struggle between those groups is unavoidable, will happen in the same way. They must kill each other because they can't be at the same place as local crime and transnational organized crime. Must have only one. And they will be having this challenge to do the domain at the institutional corruption that they use to protect them and discard the variables when these variables are evidenced, but here we observe the G20 evidenced by silence. Considering the kickoff from Brazil on budget 2014, up on at least previous events 2007, more remote period 1992 as the Cgq 1992, which was the insertion of Brazil at the neoliberal agenda, I would say, in global scale. We have 197 nations. This scheme would like to achieve the pandemic mobilization of crimes by the basic premise as corruption, covered by fake records as specific hands with specific designations. Who put the gardener there? I can ask to the gardener, who put you at the institution doing those fake records? Which kind of activity are you covering with those fake records? And then you will understand that this kind of thing will create regulations against standardized rights and guarantees, sometimes basic rights, guarantees human rights as freedom of thoughts, confirmed by the Constitution and confirmed by, for instance, the Western history and theory as development of society based on the Constitution to protect the individuals, to protect the company, the family, the groups of the arbitrariness by the misuse of state, nowadays misused by criminal purpose, if not straight and direct, at least by influence and domain. We will observe that the fake records made in each one of your process has signatures, sometimes abusive procedure, clustering all signatures and checks. In Brazil, you can't violate data. In Brazil, you can't violate your privacy. You can't make an entry on your property. You can't have anything that was observed by Brazilian peers against this effort and research, hurting the interest inside the space protected by stoned guarantees that has no excuse to be violated, and by this allowing the researcher and the interest to do the constitution of the credit based on legal right as compensation with reply as proportion against the strikes made. The strikes made are illegal. We won't gonna act illegally, but encouraging nowadays the minority as decency and dignity at the institution, considering the judicial power all around, to be combined and confirm the strike back against the organized crime inside the institution. They are there trying to be a new mafia, for instance. The big data you will have compiled and storages all signatures by frequency. You will observe that some variables, notations are kind of something repeated. If you must have, and indeed it's like this, which you have the police department that got in touch with the prosecution to transfer the case to the judge, and sometimes the judge is linked now and have the direction of the police activity, the prosecution, and doing the case, and also get in touch with the offenders and victims. This judge or ministry is a constant frequency. If violate things beyond the limits of this jurisdiction executed by a wrongdoing, has no excuse to do not punish this judge or put this judge out of the system. The first thing we have on agentropy and system management is that the system recognizes its own variables. The system must do and fix things inside or will suffer an interference. This kind of activity as use of judicial power by a country specific, corrupted in a way we prove, at least at the conformance with the law and the Constitution, affect the component as an embedded system in global scale, hurting my rights, hurting the interests inside my field of guarantees that can't be violated. And after God totally unveiled, exposed by weakness they have at the accomplishment with basic moral premises, they will try to discard this system or set a new constitution. We will observe that the G20, linked with by silence, are all in solidarity with the criminal purpose, as we told in the very beginning, all governments, leaders, judges, and system having the failure as tolerance continued points to the failure inside by variables. Treasonous act proved there are no excuse to do not make the punishment against them all. We told it's an opportunity to offer the dismissal list, but they never considered nothing as warning or according with the law. By this, they must suffer the interference and constraints until the limit affordable. In many cases, the judicial power and state power misguided included the defense used for paramilitary is capital punishment, including the Brazil. Have a great day. If it's necessary, we will keep this. But at my sides, you are all doomed. 38 trillion, Cgq research, dismissal list, prisons, more prisons.